Welcome to the Digital Ascent podcast. This is episode 0001. Today we'll be discussing password managers, password hygiene, and more. We hope you enjoy.
Okay, it sounds like we're all on board. We're going to talk about Brent's run-in with a password scare. We're going to talk about password managers. We're going to talk about password hygiene. We're going to talk about some best practices. And then after all that, it's going to be the fun stuff, the fun topic. We're going to talk about number one video games, past and present. So
I can't wait to tell you all why I'm right and you're wrong. I can't wait to tell you guys that.
Well, you hold your horses. Down. We're gonna do my topic first. I'm gonna tell you why I'm right and why you guys are wrong first.
Oh, I'm here for it,
all
man.
Right.
Let's do it.
All right. All right. Brent, do you want to kind of tell us your story and tell the
Run yourself through the mud, Brent. Run yourself.
Yeah, I will certainly run myself through the mud. Exactly. And
get it.
You guys have heard. Some of you guys have heard this, but I know our audience has not. And this is a good example of just how easy it really is, especially when you're not thinking about it. You're doing other stuff when it occurs and you're just not being as adamant about it as you possibly could be. So as far as like Discord and all that, a lot of these services have little like streamer perks, content creator perks and stuff like that. Discord has something called Hype Squad. And that is something that I signed up for notifications on ages ago to say, hey, when you guys have openings again, send me a message, send me an email, send me whatever, however they notify you that there's something available. There's a spot available. Well, I'm sitting there one day, I'm working and I get a message on Discord and there it is. There's the fabled message that says, hey, Hype Squad just opened back up. Click here to apply. And it looks official. It's a Discord message. It has, an official looking avatar, an official looking name.
Wait, Brent, so this is a Discord group? I've never heard of Hype Squad before. What is that?
It's like a ad, not really an ad revenue. It's like a partner program almost for content creators. So you kind of like you're advertising Discord and you're kind of hyping them up and they give you resources to kind of feed back into your content creation as well. Sort of deal.
Okay. That makes sense.
So it's like a tit for tat sort of deal.
Yeah.
So I get that message and, just kind of without thinking about it, I click the link, that's error number one, but we'll come back to that.
Mm-hmm.
I click the link, page loads up. It looks just like the Hype Squad page I remember. And I go ahead and I click. I scroll down to the bottom where it used to say, hey, we're no longer, we're not taking any applications right now. It says, hey, apply now. I'm like, sweet. Let me go ahead and do this really fast because I don't want to miss out on this opportunity.
Brent said I made
it. Yeah, I made it.
I made it, man.
So I click the button and it brings up your typical Discord login page, just like we've all seen before. And so I go ahead and I use my password manager to autofill my username and password.
Oh yeah. Give
and
it to him.
I hit sign in.
Did it automatically fill or did you have to like copy and paste out?
It automatically filled it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it automatically filled it. So it detected it as a proper Discord login page. And then my multi-factor thing popped up. And without even thinking about it, I went ahead and filled in my 6-digit multi-factor code and I hit log in and nothing happened. And so that was, so now I'm like, well, what's going on? Is my ad blocker blocking something that, I need or whatever? I turn that off. I hit log in again and I type in my MFA and still nothing. So now at this point, the second attempt now, keep in mind, I've done this twice. I'm kind of like, okay, something's wrong here. I go,
you knew
so what
it was
I do
wrong,
is
Brent. Yep.
I knew something was up. And so I Google searched the Hype Squad page just to make sure like, okay, let me look. And it wasn't the same subdomain. So I was like, what's going on here?
No bueno.
And so I load up the page that it showed up in Google and that page looks just a tad bit different. It was animated. It had like the backgrounds are animated and stuff. And I was like, well, God, I do remember the animations. Like it was a much prettier page. And what I did is I go back to the old page and I start hovering over all the links, like the contact us, about us and all that. they all reference back to the same page. None of the links are actually programmed. I opened up the source code, and you can tell it had a little stamp down at the bottom, and it was some application. I don't remember what the application was, but it was some type of HTML or website copier utility that someone had used, and the signature was still in the code, the HTML code at the very bottom. And so I right off the rip, I'm like, I just got phished. And so
that's it. Got fished.
Yeah, let's pause right there. So you're telling, okay, so Brent, the first thing that you did was you checked and you tried to verify the link, right? And that was, you noticed, number one, that was off, right? Once you started verifying. And then you looked at the source code for the two. What was your what was your baseline? Were you using like the original Hype Squad like web page, and then you pulled up this other page and you just compared the two like in real time?
I had them side by side. Yeah.
Okay.
The immediate kind of like, was when I loaded up the actual Hype Squad page. One, it was a different URL. And then in addition to that, so that right there was an immediate red flag. The page it seemed more up to date. And then, to my demise, when I scroll down to where the apply button's at, it's like, hey, we're not taking applications at this time. So it's like,
oof. Oh man.
Man, I'm just so
I got ultimately fished here.
You Jason Bourne the whole and the source code is like when you accidentally push one of the function keys, like in a web page, and it pulls up that.
Yep.
It's F12, and it pulls up that stuff on the side, all the script and characters.
It's all the base HTML for the website that it then populates, and then you can scan through and go look at all of the individual resources that it's utilizing. So you can hover over a link and go, eh.
Did somebody go and write that? Like that's what the website is built off of, right?
Well, someone used a tool. That is what the website's built off of. But someone used the tool, and I guarantee you pointed it at the actual Hype Squad page, copied it over. They blanked out all the links, and they pushed it up to this website. They got a really good subdomain. I'm trying to think of what it was called at this point, but it looked legit. In addition to that, it also had a valid SSL certificate for that subdomain. So all the things that I'm normally used to looking at, well, because that's usually a big telltale sign when it comes to phishing, and something that they hadn't really mastered for a long time was you would get an Office 365 link or a Yahoo link or whatever, and you'd click on it, and immediately your browser is saying, hey, this page isn't secure. I don't recommend going there. Almost now every modern browser.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so their workaround is, well, let's go ahead and throw a valid SSL certificate on there, and no one will ever think to question it.
They're cheap. A cheap subdomain can cost like $2 a year. It's basically
exactly.
You just throw away money on subdomains to trick people. It's ridiculous.
And are the subdomains like the URLs? Like, am I navigating to a subdomain every time I go to Facebook or something like that?
And hold on, I'm going to pull up the email just real quick. So it was applysquad.com.
Damn.
Was the subdomain. And it was secured, and the SSL cert was registered to that domain. And so when that was in the message, it's like, okay, well, it looks good. Like that wouldn't surprise me if Discord owned that subdomain, because the companies all the time are buying subdomains that are relevant to their products and services.
Man.
So, yep.
That's unfortunate.
Man.
So let me describe what I did real quick, because I don't think I ever got to that point, that point, or that part of the conversation was immediately I changed my password. And then what a lot of people may not think to do in that situation, but it immediately crossed my mind too, was I also immediately unlinked my multi-factor and set up a brand new multi-factor on it, so they wouldn't even have that same code generation technique. They wouldn't even have that original code.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. And so I did that immediately, and I've not seen any repercussions since. But I think a lot of it was due to the fact that I did it so quickly, and kind of driving us on into some of the conversation for the day. I only use that password for Discord. That password was unique to Discord. So I don't have to worry about them taking that and accessing my email or accessing my bank account or accessing my cell phone account. so on and so forth. Exactly. There's no overlap there. Now, I'd love to know out of our audience who doesn't use the same password for a lot of their stuff. I'd love to hear about that.
Look, I want to throw it out here. I'm going to count myself as an audience member for about 2 seconds. Actually, maybe I shouldn't. You know what? Never mind. It's too late. The cat's out of the bag. I'm going to snitch on myself. I've got a handful of things that I will use the same password for, but they have to be in the same genre of app, if that makes sense. And they also have to be. I guess that I get. Look, I feel so disgusting right now explaining this, but I feel like it's important, right? With our theme today, being passwords, just in general, right? I'm gonna learn a lot of good stuff today.
So does that mean I can get into your PlayStation account, your Xbox account, and your Steam account with the same password?
No, because those have wallets tied to them, so they get the full. I have MFA tied to those. Those are like 12 to 16 character passwords. Nobody. I'm not losing those. I'm not losing those libraries. At this point, I'm almost positive between Steam and Xbox, and this is probably the average for like serious gamers. But I'm definitely over like $1,000 spent on video games over the last 10 years. Like that's on the library alone. I have to be. I'm not sure if there's an easy way to calculate it, but just the point being, those are the types of things that I don't like. Those are getting big boy passwords.
So,
you know what I mean?
Without giving away too much information, because you said similar genres and stuff like that, just broadly, what are you sharing passwords with, just out of curiosity?
So maybe like so like Instagram and Twitter, I'm on those really heavily out of all of my social media. So those also have the full big boy treatment with MFA tied to both accounts, and 10 plus characters for the passwords that are randomly generated. For any other social media account that I don't regularly use, that would be maybe like one of my throwaway Reddit accounts.
Okay, so you scared me there at first, though.
Yeah,
I also felt the fear.
Yeah, it doesn't sound as bad as I originally thought.
I'm glad. Yeah. Thank you so much for setting me up to clarify, because like I said, I felt really gross after I had admitted it, but then after I came back in and could kind of, you know what I mean, salt my way through, now I feel better. Now I feel more. So, maybe I'm not an audience member.
It's funny that you say that, though, because when I first got married, obviously, we share accounts for a lot of things, and so we were kind of sorting out whatever things we were wanting to share, and in the midst of sharing passwords, I was like vomiting in my mouth for some of it, because it was like. I mean, granted, some of this stuff was made a long time ago, and my wife isn't the most tech savvy, so it wasn't on her brain, but it immediately just password generation, locking it down, individual passwords. Like, it was the first thing. We went through all the accounts and redid them all, and she's like, well, why do I have to have all these? I'm never going to remember that. And I was like, yeah, that's the point.
That's the point. That's the point right there, baby.
Obfuscate. Don't sit there. No. So.
And I don't say that from a high horse, because I definitely, I don't think I started practicing good password hygiene until maybe 4 years ago, that's kind of a ways away, but not relatively. I'll be 26 in about a month, and 4 years. I mean, I was an adult, so I think when we translate this conversation, and I'll use this as a smooth little segue here, and we talk about, I think this topic can be applied to people in my generation specifically. I don't know why I said my generation, because I'm pretty sure all of us are in the same generation.
I don't know if it matters.
I don't think it matters, but generally.
it's anyone who's been using passwords for
any
length of time. Right. So I want to take a moment and talk about how did we get where we are with passwords, right? How do we end up in this area where some people have this one singular password that they memorize, and some people have password managers that do that? For just a second. So originally, computers were not networked, right? And so passwords weren't like a big scary thing, right? You basically had to keep out the other people in your office, right? And that's pretty easy because people in your office can only punch buttons so fast, right? And so if you make a simple password like Hunter2, then people aren't going to be able to get in quickly because it's going to take them a while to go through like whatever methodology they're using to cycle, I assume, through words to get to Hunter2 or whatever.
Old
right?
school brute
And
force.
Old school brute force, right? And that even continued to work, right, on the internet for a while because nobody was thinking about password, like these password sprays. And even if they were, they couldn't handle an 8-character password or even a 6-character password in many cases. And, so at first we ended up once again with like relatively simple passwords and it wasn't a big deal. And then as time went on, we came to the realization that, well, straight up dictionary words, just like words out of a dictionary, like they're just too easy to guess. So then they made you start adding special characters into these passwords that had to, at this point, be probably 8 characters long, right? So you ended up with like capital P @SSW0RD password. Right? Something easy to remember, looks vaguely like the word password.
Used that
and
in
you can do
every single lab I ever did in school. That was the default. Yep.
Welcome
That's the
01.
default Microsoft password for all the labs.
Exactly, right. And it's easy, but it meets complexity requirements, and that just means like how challenging you have to make it so that a person or ideally even a computer can't guess it immediately or within a reasonable time period. That depends on a lot of nuanced scenario and like details that I don't want to get into at the moment. Point being that what we've ended up with now is that those passwords don't really cut it anymore, right? And we still kind of pretend that they do. But the biggest problem about that is that with a password like that, you cannot store 20 of them in your brain. And not only that, but they're miserable to type out. And anything that resembles a word like password P @SSW0RD might as well be the word password in plain text or in like plain English to a computer. So like adding those special characters doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't actually make it any more complicated for the computers. It makes it more complicated for humans to type it in or read it. I can't count the amount of times I've been trying to figure out, is that a capital O or is that a 0? I guess I'm just going to do the password twice and figure out which one's the winner.
That's the truth, though.
Dude, it is. I mean, how many times you sat there and cursed the last person who was sitting in front of the system and you went, man, who typed in this password or who wrote this password? Is that an I or is that one of those like uppercase or is that one of those like pipe symbols that's below the backspace key, right? It's very frustrating. Or is it an L?
Literally the worst. It's literally the worst.
It's
thing
so bad
ever.
So it's kind of like, what do you do about it, right? I mean, we'll get to that. I promise we'll get, what do you do about these problems, right? Anyways, so then people brought along the password managers, and password managers are good. What is a password manager? A password manager is a program where it stores all of your passwords for you. In the best case scenario, it also recognizes what app on your phone you have open or what website is on your web browser, and it's able to interact with that and put in these passwords for you, so you never even have to look at the password. Ideally, these passwords are long enough that nobody's going to guess them. And as long as you know one password, that's the password to get into your password manager, and I guess ideally your email, because your email is probably going to reset all of your passwords in the event of loss of your password manager. Then you're pretty good to go there.
So really quick, because thinking about audience, it's no longer people against people as far as some dude sitting in his room typing in passwords over and over again. It is, not to be scary, but us versus the machine. So they have
absolutely
things in the background that are processing these attacks or forced entries. And so I think for the audience, it makes a lot of sense to think of it as you're not going up against another human brain. You're going up against a computer that can quickly output hundreds and thousands of, entries at a time and just churn through them quickly. So that's kind of why it's important and why the complexity needs to be there, because it's not just Joe Blow over there sitting there trying to crack your password. It's him hitting a button and saying, okay, go do this for me.
Yep. And it's also why we have account lockouts, which everyone hates, but there is certainly a reason behind that.
Right.
From a security standpoint, they are absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
Number one,
that's the number of times.
Feature.
Yeah. Number of times you can actually input a password.
I'll get to that. I'll get to that. Yeah.
I just want to say, Matt, you're doing a great job so far. I'm entranced by the words that you're saying right now. There's a lot of history here, right? That you're kind of throwing out and kind of skewing through. I don't know if you were going to get to this, but I looked up like some years, right, to kind of lay out a timeline. I only got 2 days, so it's going to take 30 seconds to throw this out there, all right?
Yeah, bring them on.
Computers. All right, so we're just going to start one to kind of set the timeline. Computers have been a part of like commercial business since the 1950s, like the early 1950s. The first guy, or the guy who created passwords, he was some nerd that went to MIT, and apparently he did it out of necessity, not security. That happened in the 1960s, the very early 1960s. So we've had passwords
almost a decade
since the 60s. And that's insane to me to think of how much, because I know you're about to lay it down, Matt, but how much passwords have changed since I hopped on my first computer and, created my first username password combo or whatever, to now we're talking about like security hashes and that's crazy. All right. And so thank you, Matt, for letting me interject there. I'm going to hand this back to you. Take us away.
Okay. So, where we left off is basically we're stuck in a position with 8-character passwords, some of which we've remembered. Maybe we've moved to a password manager, and they're terrible to enter because to make them secure, they have to basically be illegible. Easy for machines, bad for humans. Humans just like, once again, who can tell the difference between uppercase I and a lowercase L in, 1,000 different fonts, right? And who knows what the manufacturer is going to pick. And some of those passwords can be cracked within an hour. And I'm going to have lots of show notes and lots of data that our listeners can crawl through and see how I came to my conclusions. But I'm of the mindset personally that an 8-character password doesn't really cut it in scenarios where there isn't a robust account lockout feature. I would also say there's concerns with 8-character passwords with, if you get a known hash, and that's when when a computer handles a password, it oddly enough doesn't actually handle a password. It handles an encrypted password version. Or think of it like a virtual password. I'm sorry, it's really hard to describe. Just think of it that the computer doesn't deal with the actual password of it, deals with the hash. Anyways, if you get the computer's version of your password, maybe think about the computer's version of your password. That's probably the simplest way I can do it. If you get the computer's version of your password, then you can try passwords over and over again against the known mechanism that creates that. And if you get a match, winner, chicken dinner. And guess what? It's not going to surprise you to know that an 8-character password is easier to match up than, say, like a 15-character password.
Okay, so Matt, let me pause you right there. All right, if I'm not mistaken, you're talking about security hashes and passwords, right? Like what unique string of computer language your password is translated into when you put that password in, right? So the concept behind security hashes is that there is a unique, we'll call it computer language, a unique string of computer language tied to your password that when you put that in, that's what the computer is seeing. So what Matt is kind of referencing right now is, yes, with these different types of programs or whatever Matt spoke to here, they're looking to kind of recreate that unique string of computer language so that they can keep your password on file for Skynet things and such, correct?
Basically, yes, exactly. It's like a secret handshake.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like you only get the password if you know the secret handshake.
Mm-hmm.
And so this may be, I'm so sorry, I'm just on this idea of security hashes just really quick. You know what? Never mind. I don't need to ask this question. Go ahead, continue, Matt.
All right, so I do want to say NIST, that's the U.S.'s National Institute of Standards and Technology. NIST does still recommend 8-character passwords. They also have a bunch of other things that they recommend, which I'm going to get into here in just a little bit. But I want to get to where are we now and what are the current recommendations and just kind of talk about like some overall concepts there before I get into like best practices and stuff.
Take us on the journey.
8-character passwords that are useful, confusing, and unfortunate and hard to type in. You know, it's hard to be like uppercase S, lowercase d, $, number 5, whatever. So the new theory is that you should be thinking about passphrases. What is a passphrase? A passphrase is a string of words together. You can separate them with special characters. You know, I have some favorite special characters that I like to use in my passphrases that I feel like enhance readability. And I'm just going to take some random words. I'm going to think of some right now. Dogs, rabbits, yummy, hotel. That is a fantastic passphrase. That thing's got to be at least, like, it's got to be broaching on like 20 characters long. I might throw a 6 in there somewhere, you know, just wherever. And when it comes to type it in, so I can log back into Google on my TV or back into Netflix on my tablet or whatever, it's going to be way easier than uppercase R, lowercase t, caret, lowercase u, I, uppercase I, lowercase L, bracket, bracket, star.
So you're saying it is recommended, you know, in modern today, to use passphrases, just kind of like you just laid out right now, just a random string of words. And
so, hold on though, that's interesting to me though, because with dictionary brute force hacking, it goes through the dictionary, just inserts words. So explain
like how is that better?
Yeah, damn, Shaun.
How is that better?
Holes.
It's because the concept of password entropy. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know how to do the math. I looked at the math and I said, I haven't seen those math symbols since Calc 1. I dropped out of engineering for a reason. I'm going to assume that these guys know what they're talking about. I put some notes in the show notes so you can go look at the math yourself if you're a mathematician or if you're just smarter than me.
It's also, though, you know, keep in mind, too, it's also about context because, like, if you said, you know, I like DeLoreans as my password.
Yeah,
technically that's a phrase.
That's fair.
A bad password for you,
technically, that's a phrase, right? Technically, that's a phrase, though, but it's not a secure phrase because that's all sequential. Like, that's an actual sentence. Where the actual security comes from is the randomness of the words that you choose. And then, like you said, throw a 6 somewhere in there, even if it's between the words, just to keep it easy.
Yes.
That still is phenomenal from the security standpoint. There's not going to be a lot of brute force anytime soon, anyways. That's going to crack that. It might crack it, but it's going to be a long time. We're talking what, 5+ years to crack something like that, if not longer.
That's so the insane. Point is not the words so much as the context, the character number, as in if there's no sequential sentence structure, it will then no longer be as easy because then it's not. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
I play devil's advocate naturally, so you'll have to forgive me. It's, you know, part of what I do.
I'm gonna go a step further. I'm gonna say the big key is just get the numbers. You're just trying to get the length up. That's the entire goal. The entire goal is get the password length as long as you can.
Yeah, you're checking a bunch of boxes there.
Yeah, and so, you know, the goal is that if you have an uppercase, a lowercase, an uppercase letter, a lowercase letter, a number, and a special character in there, and I'm trying to hack your account, I pretty much have to honor that you could throw any of those characters into any of those spots. And on that, like a 20-character password that I put out there, you're not getting anything, dog. Good luck. I pulled some numbers from Bitwarden. We're going to talk about Bitwarden a bit. I pulled some numbers from Bitwarden's passphrase or password checker. That's going to be in the show notes. You want to go check out your passwords? Go to Bitwarden's password checker. Do not put in your password. Put in something like your password. So I picked something with the old method. I used the word targets, capital T @RG3TS exclamation point. And that got cracked in 53 seconds, or it would be cracked in 53 seconds in a sub-ideal
Oh
scenario.
man.
As opposed to I did my space targeted space account with a capital M. Now, the space does actually count as a special character, so I have everything but a number in there. And that takes 6 years. So
Holy crap.
I mean, like, yes. So
Holy crap.
moving it away from a sentence is definitely better because it increases the randomness, and that's the objective. You just want to increase the randomness. So let's move on. I feel like we covered passphrases. Let's talk about password managers. Okay, so now I know I have these readable passphrases that I no longer want to stab out my eyes every time I have to use one of these things, or cut off my fingers, or cut off the fingers of the last engineer, or you got somebody, I don't know. What do you do with them? Well, you got to stick them somewhere useful. And I'm going to tell you what, reading them from a notebook's not a lot of fun. It's hard to update those, and it's hard to keep track. You never know where the right website is. So I recommend a password manager. A couple password managers. I'm going to throw out some names for you. These are also, once again, in the show notes. If you're looking for something kind of simple, there's Bitwarden. I don't want to say it's simple as in it's lacking features, but it is simple as in if you haven't worked with a lot of password managers, or you want something that just works. This is what I want for you, this is what I suggest for you.
I'm a bit partial to it too, by the way. I use that
also
for work and for personal, and I've also talked to the developers, and I value what they do. So just a little side note there.
I'd say intuitive.
Yeah, and if you chip it a couple bucks a month, it'll give you multi-factor authentication, and that just means that it'll keep those passwords when you instead of sending you a text, you can get the code from inside Bitwarden. So I like Bitwarden also. I think it's a good product. For somebody who wants something that's a little more robust, there's KeePass. KeePass is another password manager. It's well known in the IT industry, and has a ton of extensions, so you can do it a lot what you want with it. I think the big advantage of KeePass, I think that you host your own server and you hold your own data, as opposed to where Bitwarden they do host their own data, but they do a good job doing it. That's as much as I can say, at least from the perspective that I have. With KeePass, I think you're going to host your own data. Once again, it's a little more advanced because there's going to be a lot more steps to get up and going. But both good products. KeePass is free. So that's free as in speech, not free as in beer, I believe. I recommend both of those. If you want help, please come to our Discord. We would love to help you out in the tech support channel and get you set up on password managers. I personally feel like I want to help people get on the password manager so bad. Please come to our Discord and ask for help.
Let's clarify something. A sticky note on your monitor, not a password manager.
That's not a password manager.
Underneath the
An Excel
keyboard,
sheet.
not it.
Yeah, an Excel sheet with all your passwords in it. That's not a password manager, guys.
I tell people all the time, please do not do that. Please, let's figure out a different solution. Hey, have you heard of this? Have you heard of that?
Yeah, it's nuts what I see still these days.
Keep in mind. Yep, go ahead.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
One of the ones out there is LastPass, and they had a breach. So what? I'm trying to think about how to phrase this. So there's only so much you can do, right? So and I think maybe that's part of the difference between hosting it locally, where you are on your own server, versus the having it hosted somewhere else.
Well,
So
I actually have some input into that theory.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what do we think about, if one gets busted, what about the others? I guess that's the question.
Something that I've seen recently that I don't necessarily agree with, and I know that this could go down a long, long road in this conversation because I don't think we previously discussed it, but I'm seeing a lot of password managers these days also handle MFA generation.
Yep.
And I feel like that's a big no-no. And the reason I say that is because of the example that you just described. If someone hacks one of these platforms and somehow gets the information, do you want them to just have your password, or do you want them to also have your password and your MFA?
Yeah.
Because
that's a good
if they
point,
get your
Brent.
password database, you still have your MFA in your hand typically on your Authenticator
Right.
app on your phone, whether it's Authy, Microsoft Authenticator, Google Authenticator, whatever. You still have the other link to them being able to get into your account. If you're storing your password and your MFA seed in the same entry on, let's say, Bitwarden or KeyPass or LastPass, whatever, you now have lost everything. And keep in mind too that regardless of the fact of whether you have an extreme password on your master account, your master password manager account, or you have MFA on it or whatever, that's one hurdle that someone has to get through to get access to everything. So
Right.
you've essentially put one door to your whole house, and it may not be the most secure door. So that's my thing, is like, if anyone is using that, at least in my opinion, and I'd be curious to hear Matt's perspective on this too, because he's even more security minded than me. But I do not think, as nice as the feature is, I do not think it's a great idea to store your MFA along with the password on a password manager, as convenient as it may be, because I just feel like you're giving someone all the keys to the castle, essentially.
I strongly agree with you. Sometimes I feel like necessity dictates that you do that. Just realistic, man. Like I'm just being super real here. Best practice, absolutely not. But man, sometimes there's a business case, and at the end of the day, security answers to the business needs of the business, not the other way around. The tail does not wag the dog.
Right.
So,
And there's cases where it's quote unquote shared, which, obviously that's recommended against anyways, but sometimes that's unavoidable. Sometimes there's a singular account that 15, 20 people need access to. Of course you want MFA on it, because you don't want anybody in the outside world getting to it. You don't want anybody externally to be able to get access to it. However, you've got to be able to share that amongst, your coworkers, staff, whatever. So then it's a great solution for it. Don't get me wrong. But you at home and you got your bank account and stuff like that, I would prefer against it. Like, it's just one more step you can take. I think there is going to be a day and time where, the computers are going to start somehow hacking that too. Like, I feel like with AI learning and machine learning and stuff like that, it's only going to get worse. It's going to get harder and harder to secure your stuff.
bet.
Sorry, I didn't mean to rabbit trail, but I thought it might be something to discuss because it seemed pertinent.
Yeah.
So we don't have to continue on it. I think we've covered it, but it was just something on my brain.
I do want to say that these password companies, they should be encrypting and then what's called salting and hashing the data. And basically that means that it makes it very hard to crack. Basically, when you salt data, when you hash something, you encrypt it. You make it unreadable by humans. And then when you salt that hash, that means that you throw in garbage, basically. Just
Sounds
junk,
like a tasty
fluff.
breakfast to me.
Yeah.
I heard that.
Salt and hash flakes.
And it just means it's even harder to decrypt, because you have to, not only do you have to figure out what the heck it says, you have to figure out what the heck's garbage. And those are all nulls and things you got to throw out. Okay, I know we're running pretty late on time here, guys. I just want to go ahead and run through some best practices real quick. Number one, definitely recommend, please use a password manager. It's going to ask you for a master password. That's your password to access your passwords. Make that a good passphrase, one you're definitely not going to forget. An example of this would be correct battery staple horse. From XKDC fans out there, please do not use that one. That one is like very well known on the internet. Number two, please use multi-factor authentication. That means, whenever it asks you to check that, whenever you're in an account, it says, do you want to use MFA or multi-factor? And then it asks you to scan a QR code and put it into Authy or Microsoft Authenticator or Google Authenticator or anything. Please do that. Do that on every account that you possibly can. If you are in a position where you can make design choices, I've got some standards from NIST for you. Once again, that's the National Institute of Standards and Technology. 1, enable show password. Most people are not going to be shoulder surfing. If they are, hopefully your passphrase is long enough that they're not going to remember it. Once again, throw a number in there or something. It makes it a little bit harder. Number 2, those passwords must be stored securely. That means hashed, as we've talked about. Number 3, and this is a big one, lock after multiple failed attempts. I like somewhere between 3 and 5. And the whole goal here is to stop somebody from trying 1,000 passwords at once. And why, from my opinion, it's why NIST still says that an 8-character password is okay, is because when you pair it with this and with a really strong blacklist, then those two things together make password sprays very challenging. And a password spray is when you're an attacker and you just like try to shoot passwords over and again. Password, welcome 01, uniform, whatever, see what you get. Next. No more password periodic resets. I will say in a little addendum here, some audits will require that you do this still, but NIST says in their special publication 800-63B under the section 5.1.1.2 memorize secret verifiers.
Oh, Lord.
That you I looked all this up. I read it. I wanted to make sure I knew what I was talking about. That you no longer do password periodic resets because it just makes people do password 1 exclamation point. Password 2 exclamation point. And that's also super guessable by a computer and not useful. Next, focus on length, not complexity. In fact, they even say don't require complexity requirements. And once again, those complexity requirements are @ signs and numbers and uppercases and lower cases. I personally don't think I would recommend that yet. I'm not too sure personally. My personal feeling is 16-character passphrase is. And at that point, I would just remove complexity requirements because I don't care. 16 characters just doesn't matter anymore. Next, in tandem with that, is monitor for frequent password rotation. If you aren't rotating passwords because you no longer have password resets, then password rotations are suddenly like, that's a suspect thing. Why are you doing that? You shouldn't need to do that. And then next is multi-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication. Please preach it everywhere. Do it on any way that you connect into your environment. You should be talking about multi-factor authentication. If I know it's a little bit of a hassle, but it's way less of a hassle than cleaning up a breach. So that's my spiel about password managers.
Is it like
stuff.
Beetlejuice?
If you say
MFA enough times, yeah, it'll magically appear. Yeah,
Gosh, I
people
wish.
start using it.
Bro, there are so many times in my career when I wish I could just sit there and be like, MFA, 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 and poof, it would be enabled for my client.
You know what's unfortunate about MFA and stuff like that, and just like a quick note to anybody listening that's not familiar with it, is that it's called a bunch of different things. You might see it references 2-factor. You might see it references multi-factor.
SMS.
It might not even be referenced as that. Yeah, it could be
SMS text.
It could be a number of different things.
Yeah, a million different things.
I recommend just checking the security tab of whatever account you're logged into and look around. See what else is beside the whole change your password field and see if they do offer any alternative authentication. Because I highly recommend it. If you sit down and think about it and say, I would really hate for someone to get their hands on this account, you probably want to lock it down.
Yep.
And if it doesn't have multi-factor, I highly recommend getting into the routine. And I know this is easier said than done, but getting into the routine of changing it on a regular basis. And especially if you're using something that's simple, like just password, if you already have identified listening to this podcast that you've got a really bad password, go change it right now. As soon as you listen to this, go change your password.
Go change it
right now. Go
Brent,
change your password.
I do just want to go ahead and say, because I have to, unfortunately, that the NIST recommendation is specifically not to change unless you suspect breach. You should just throw a good password on there to begin with. That is the official recommendation.
So very good password to start with.
But that's the goal. The goal is that all of these other things only work with the other things in place. You shouldn't be using 8-character passwords like basketball. That is an example of a dictionary password. It's also like number 19 on NIST's number 1 password dump out of millions of passwords. So if your password is the word basketball, you definitely need to go change your password this second, please. Somebody is trying to log into your account right now. So I think that's our technical topic. We got a fun topic here next, and like Jordyn said,
wait,
what?
hold on, Matt. All right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
First of all, I want to give you some kudos because that was I learned so much. I mean, I already got good password hygiene, so it ain't nothing to me. You know what I mean? But yeah, I did learn some knowledge.
I'm sensing some contradiction there, Jordyn.
You know what I mean?
Right? No kidding, man. Jordyn forgot.
Hey, look, hold on. Wait, but then Matt started talking about the nitty gritty, and I was like, all right, I do that. Okay, number 2, I did that. Oh, number 3, boom, beat me to it. I did that. Look, I checked all the boxes, so no problem there. Look, I don't want to talk about passwords no more. I want to talk about video games.
Okay.
What's
No,
the
no, 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 no.
Uh-oh.
We've got the password blacklist.
Okay, the blacklist.
gotta do the
Oh,
password
okay. I'll do the blacklist quick. You're right. Sorry. So the password blacklist. So there's a bunch of things that you don't want people to put as your passwords, and I mean this in all seriousness. Password is definitely one of them. You should also be banning things like seasons. People love to put seasons as their password. Ban that. Ban that. Ban that. Don't allow anybody to do it. If your password is password or it has anything to do with the season or a year, go change all that right now. If it's a year, go change that too. Those should all be on blacklists. Those are all passwords. Blacklists is a list of things that you cannot tolerate in your environment because they are too high of a risk. Because they're used, and because I don't even say if everybody is like, somebody's attacking your account at some point in time. Like, it's happening to everybody, and people are guessing your email. Emails are all over the place. It's so easy to get a list of emails. They got your email. Now they're going to start doing the passwords. Oh, you got a Gmail address? Oh, wonderful. Just go to mail.google.com and start hitting your passwords. And if your password is Dragon, that's like number 9 on the password list by the way, of passwords that you shouldn't have. You should go change your password. If password's Dragon.
So let's back up real quick.
There
is in the show notes an
Yes.
actual web link to the blacklist, and
be
what that does
warned.
is it shows you all of the ones that have been compromised and the number one ones that have been used, or like
That's count, by the way. So if
Oh,
you're at
that's
the top,
count.
that's
Okay.
count. So number 1, so the password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think it is the number 1 is the most used password in the world. If that's your password, I guess you have the password to Druidia and President Scrooge's luggage. And
One,
also, you need to go change your
2.
password, please. Oh,
password to my luggage. Yeah, be forewarned. If you go to that list, there's some profanity. So
yeah,
just
there's
heads up.
there's
If you
quite a
see
bit of
some
profanity.
janky stuff.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean, these are just numbers and counts. It's just data, dog. We didn't come up with these things, but here they are. You know, I personally, I recommend go check it out. See if your password's on there. If your password's on there, please go change your password. So
Yeah, like
now-
immediately.
immediately. So now the fun stuff. And like Jordyn said, I'm here to tell you guys why you're all wrong about the number 1 video games. So my number 1 video game. I would
Wait,
say my
hold
number
on.
one
Wait.
Whoa,
Before-
Whoa, that was way too
Here-
quick. Way too quick.
Wait.
All
Way
right.
too quick.
All right.
Wait. Before we start, you have to lay out rules. All right? Do series count? All right?
So like multiple titles in this
Yeah.
series of
Yeah,
games.
sure.
If for
Why
whatever
not?
reason I want
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Okay,
And
whatever.
Know
what George's gonna
okay,
pick
that was
now.
it. That was my only question. Go ahead, man.
All right. So mine is part of a series, but it is not the full series. I love Morrowind. I still feel like Morrowind for me is pinnacle RPG.
That's solid.
It did not age super well. I have played and beaten Morrowind within the past 3 years.
No.
I did it. It took a long time. Man, that game is so big and there's just so much depth and it's a long series. It was my first time I ever actually beat it from beginning to end with 0 cheats. And it's a major challenge, but man, what a beautiful game. And there's just so much flexibility and you just don't
Did
see
you
that
know
anymore.
that they were actually trying to put a mod in that would update the graphics and it got nixed?
I've
pretty
heard
sure it
a
got
lot
nixed.
of rumors over the years.
Yeah.
So that's that. Currently, where am I wasting my time? My time gets split between 2 major things. One is Distant Worlds as my... I don't really want to call it Stellaris replacement because I'm just not sure it's there yet, but it hasn't had 6+ years of development, so give it time. And that's a 4X. If you ever play Civilization, it's like Civilization in space, man.
it's grand strategy, basically.
Yeah, start with one colony, make more colonies, drill out asteroids, whatever. And the other one is Elden Ring, which obviously super popular right now. For those
Boo,
that don't know,
simp.
yeah,
Boo.
it's pretty good.
Oh wow, he dropped the simp on you.
I know
What?
this man did
You
not
said
just
what?
say simp. Oh my
I didn't hear that.
goodness. All right.
Wow.
Okay, so
that was
Matt's number
dirty.
one is Morrowind.
Bad.
That's your
Number one.
That's your number one.
That's my number one pass, and that's where I'm
Who's
grinding my
going
time
next?
now.
Who's
I heard
going
it was
next?
you, dog.
I can't wait to
I heard it
argue
was
over
you.
these. Oh, it's me.
Just go.
All right.
Go ahead, Jordy.
Just go.
All right, so I'm gonna. Oh man, I thought about this one for a little bit. All right, because it was between a few of them, but I'm just gonna narrow it down to one, and that's gonna be the BioShock series for me. All right, minus BioShock 2. I don't think the game is bad, but I mean it is overshadowed by BioShock 1 and BioShock Infinite and the DLC that ties them both together. I mean
That's so
that
polite.
world to me. I play that game yearly. Like I'm getting ready. The season's coming up. I'm getting ready to play it again here in a few weeks, and it's probably the game that I've gone back to and played the most. There's just oh man, it's so immersive and it's grimy and it's dirty. Like it's a world that feels lived in. You know what I mean? And it's like every time I go back, it's one of those games that I'm finding
immersive.
something new. Yeah, exactly. And I just can't like no contest. I'll fight that one. I'll die on that hill. I'll take that one to the grave. Like
It's a fantastic series.
It's a really good choice.
And the moral
I like
choices,
your little
too.
addendum.
oh
You like between like saving the little girls or absorbing their oh man.
yeah, man. And by the time I don't want to spoil it, but by the time you get to Infinite, they take that moral choice and they turn it into moral ambiguity. Like it's just that they're trying to tell you or teach you. There you go. I can't speak at all. Thank you. They're trying to teach you like it doesn't matter what your choices are from beginning to end. This character's pathway will always end the same. And so it took me probably 4 or 5 playthroughs to figure it out. But there's this underlying tone to both games. It's outstanding storytelling. Outstanding. Fantastic. That's
All
my
right.
spiel.
So Jordy, it's past and present. Is that fulfilling both?
Yes. Yeah, I think so.
So
I
wow.
think,
BioShock.
I think
so
that
that's fulfilling. Wow. Okay. Man.
yeah,
fair.
actually, yeah.
No Halo? Really? No Halo?
Dude,
Not even a little bit.
No Halo.
when I think of another game that stacks up, I don't think to BioShock. I don't know that there is one from my childhood that meets the same. I don't know. I think I was 11 or 12 when I played the first BioShock, and I had played a lot of video games up to that point. I've played a lot of video games since. I don't know that I get the same feeling playing any other game as when I'm going through BioShock. Yeah, so I think that's mine. I think it's for both. Yeah, I'll give you that one. Past and present.
All right, Brent, go next.
Okay. So my past one is an old Super Nintendo title called Earthbound. Gosh, I don't even know where to start with this one. It's a role playing game. You follow around Ness. I know everybody knows Ness because Ness has made multiple appearances now in Smash Brothers. So if you don't know who Ness is, that's who Ness is. And if you don't know where Ness came from, well, he came from, technically it's the Mother series. That's how it was known in Japan. When it came to the West, they rebranded it as Earthbound. And unfortunately, there's multiple titles in the series. Earthbound is the only one that technically made it to the West. But it is a phenomenal game that, like I said, was for Super Nintendo. And it's like your old school kind of role playing game. It reminds me, previous to playing it, the only thing I had played that was like it would be like the old school Final Fantasy games where you've got, a team of characters and they all have their own separate skills and own separate inventories. And, you're managing them, through fights and stuff like that. But just the storyline and the cultural references and all that, phenomenal. And then my modern day one, which actually I do believe Jordy is the one that recommended this game to me.
Oh, I already know what you're about to drop. Oh, it's a banger.
And Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, technically is what it's called, but I just referenced it as Hellblade in my notes.
That works.
But so good. And I don't even know. I mean, it's like a psychological thriller / puzzle game / just like a real emotional experience into mental illness. And it is phenomenal. I highly recommend everybody play that. I picked it up for like $10 when
It's
it was on
cheap.
sale.
Dude, it is
and it is
cheap
by
right
far
now.
the best $10 I've ever spent on anything.
I just want to build off of this really quick, and the piece of it that for that game that stood out for me was the it's what you said, Brent, that how it kind of walks you through this journey of mental health. The character that you play as, Senua, has it's like schizophrenia or like a severe case of psychosis, and so you're playing the entire game with voices in the back of your head. And you have to play this game with a headset, and because the voices are constantly talking to you, and it gets to the point where they're giving you call outs that the game trains you to realize, like, oh, hey, there's somebody on your right. And there have been many a time for me playing through that game where you get in the later half, I get a call out and there's nobody there, and the enemy was on the other side. Right now, I'm not trying to minimize like the severity of those kinds of mental disorders or disabilities, whatever your preference, but just the amount of work that went into making that game what it was, all the way down to like the Norse mythology, and then again into the mental health stuff. They actually, I think if you have the game in the menu, they added a whole documentary on what they did. The science and the research.
Totally worth the watch.
Fantastic! It is so good. All right, I didn't want to steal that anymore. I'm done.
No, you're fine. And
so
just a little throw out too. Hellblade 2 is on its way. It's been delayed far too much, but
and that's all right.
It's on its way. It'll be here before we know it.
Yes.
So
good.
So Shaun, it's all you, sir.
All right. This was a hard one for past because there were a lot of games that shaped me as a gamer, but the one that stood out the most was Dungeon Siege: Legends of Arana. I don't know if any of you have heard of that, but it. So
what's it called, Shaun?
It's Dungeon Siege: Legends of Arana. So they made a couple more, and don't recommend. Didn't really care for them, especially 3. 3 was such a disappointment. Anyway, but I distinctly remember going to Circuit City with my dad and him having it in the car. And us just like, I held it in my hands and it was like flipping it over and reading the book and looking at the CD and the art cover. And it was just fantastic. But it's an RPG. And it was the first RPG I had ever played. And that was when my whole gaming world shifted. That's what got me into Oblivion, Skyrim, everything onward RPG-wise was based off of this game. And I still play it.
I know that obviously Brent and Matt would have also went through this, but Shaun, you're the closest to my age, so I think we would have went through it around the same time. But that gap from games that aren't RPGs to playing my first RPG blew my mind. Like, and I think it might have been Knights of the Old Republic. I think that might have been my first one. I put so many hours into that game. I dozens and dozens and dozens, and that game was played through years. You know what I mean? Just getting to make my own choices and getting to feel like I'm the character that's rolling through everything. I love that.
The difference with Dungeon Siege is that it's pretty much on rails, right? Just because of the graphical and computing limitations of the time, it's pretty on rails. But the storyline was captivating. I mean, gosh, just you wanted to keep playing it, and I still do. Like I will boot it up, like probably once every quarter, and still churn it out and just sit there for hours. So that's my past. Present is Factorio, and that's going to be kind of weird, but so
I've heard about this one. Tell me, let's get in depth with this one.
Factorio.
It's great for people who get off work and then want to go to work again.
Yeah, basically. It's you're not wrong. So
I know I'm not wrong.
The premise is you've landed on a planet and you have to basically build a rocket ship to get back off. The problem is, as you build your base and you start producing resources, it then produces pollution. There are aliens on the planet that feed and mutate off of this and then attack your base. So it's this juxtaposition of, I need to make sure my base expands so that I can produce the things I need to make the rocket, while simultaneously trying to feed guns and trains that have bombing shells on it to try and min-max your base to be the most efficient it possibly can be to get to the end. And
let me pause you right there, Shaun. I'm so sorry. I have such a stupid question. I have been playing video games for decades at this point. It's plural. All right. I have no idea what min-maxing means. Somebody tell me, please.
So min-maxing is where you find the perfect balance between utilization. Like, you don't go over resources and you don't go under. So you're producing at maximum output with the least amount of effort possible.
Now this is and damage, if that's what you want, or
correct. You're building to be
the best in class,
the epitome of whatever it is that you're trying to do. You're trying to make sure all the stats are correctly positioned and put together to reach the optimum.
All right. See, I knew how to do that. I know that. Right? I just didn't. Yes. God, I couldn't find an explanation anywhere. Good Lord.
Exactly. So I come back to this game scratches a part of my brain that it's bad. Like, hits my dopamine receptors super hard. But
let me ask you this, Shaun.
That's mine.
So for does that game, does it not scratch the same itch as like a Minecraft or what was that game that you were playing when I was still in Tennessee? It was like an isometric view, over top, and you were building a factory.
It's Factorio.
Oh, it's Factorio. Yep, Man, I'm thinking of a different game then. I'm thinking of a different game. Okay.
No.
All right. No, that makes sense.
It's isometric top down. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. That's mine. But Matt is right. It's a job. It's a job.
It's work simulator. You're like Dwight from The Office, Second Life. That's you.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Some of those are fun to unwind with, though, honestly. I don't know how that makes sense. Don't ask me why, but I've played a couple of, the simulation games where it's like,
you turn your brain off.
There's no possible way this could be fun. And you, 2 hours later, I'm like, I just played this game for 2 hours. I don't know why I did that.
There was a
You're not talking about Power Washer Simulator, are you?
No, the most recent example would be the PC building simulator or something like that. Like you run your own little IT shop.
I'm really into the they're kind of like the Factorio type games, but I can't do graphics that old. There's this one. There's this it's called Mars, Surviving Mars. When I found this game a couple years ago, I love the base building. I love when I found that game a couple years ago, I think my wife and I were on leave, and we came back home, and I was staying up for 8, 10, 12 hours a day playing Surviving Mars, where the whole idea is just you're setting up a base. You're trying to Elon Musk, Mars. You're
surviving Mars.
That's literally it. Yep. And I was still functioning like a regular adult. I'd do my normal stuff, hang out with the family, and then when everybody went to sleep, just like a little rat, I was in the back surviving Mars. That's
like a little rat.
That's it. Another one of those games, Frostbite. No. That's another one. Or not Frostbite. Frostbite.
All right, we can keep going forever.
I go on forever.
So let's.
All right, I love those games. That's it.
Yeah.
All righty.
What a good episode. Is that wrap?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
I think that's a wrap.
I think that's a wrap.
Thank you for tuning in and listening to Digital Ascent podcast. Please come by our Discord and ask us about password managers. We do want to help you. If you're not in Discords, we do have a forum. If not that, then I don't know. Come to our Discord. I guess you can try and get my number.
We'll talk about video games or something.
I don't know.
Yeah, we got a bunch of
come talk about video games, man. It doesn't have to be password
manager.
We'll
talk about anything. All right,
whatever.
We will literally talk about anything.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's a bunch of this stuff.
We just out there BSing, hanging out. So, well, thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you guys with the next episode. Take it easy.
See you.
We appreciate you listening to this episode. Make sure to stop by our website at digitalascent.tech, our Discord channel, and our forum. Take care till next time.